please, please, we don't want to give anybody sleepless nights. We don't want to start panic. Don't let your imaginations run riot. These things we're talking about are very, very rare indeed.
Hello, and welcome to Mondo Cinemock. Now, I don't know where you are as you're watching this. Where I am in this here and now that is my own. We're up to our last pubic thrum in the guts of the season of the witch. It's dark outside before ever the dawn has had a chance to have a pish and a slice of loaf in the morning. Weird things are going on in bell towers across the country. The X Factor's halfway through. Down in the village, a woman gave birth to a calf. So it seemed like the perfect time to put together a wee list of 5 horror pictures that I personally feel are amongst the most terrifying of all ever. Certainly they've freaked the fist and Christ out of me on many, many occasions. Now, with the odd exception, and one pretty big exception actually, I've tended to go for stuff that maybe doesn't get talked about so much. Obviously, if I was putting together some sort of definitive list of these things, I'd have stuff like The Innocents, Ring maybe, The Haunting definitely. You don't need some ball bag on YouTube to tell you how terrifying The Haunting is. You already know. And if you don't know, there's plenty of ball bags in your own street that'll be only too happy to fill you in without it eating into your BT broadband allowance or whatever. And as well, I mean, this is all terribly subjective. What I find terrifying, you might think is for fuck all but thrown to fuck. Nothing I can do about that. But if you're settling down of an autumn evening, or whatever evening, and you're looking for a wild dose of the heebie-jeebies, grab one of these buggers, is my advice. If you're anything like me, you'll be scared halfway to Kingdom Come.
Wait till I tell you I seen a terrible scary film one time. Is that right, hey? Did you see a scary one, did you? Oh, for Jesus' sake, I was at me wet sand over the head of it. Oh no, wait, now when I think it was somebody else now that saw that one. Well, thank God for that.
So, first of all, and certainly messiest of all, I've gone for Mermaid in a Manhole, 1988 Japanese picture directed by the absolutely bloody demented Hadeshi Haino. It's the 4th installment in the Guinea Pig series, which also gave us Haino's earlier Flower of Flesh and Blood, a film which gained no small degree of notoriety after Charlie Sheen, of all bloody people, reported it to the FBI, believing it to be a genuine snuff film. Charlie Sheen's eyes were clearly on holiday at the time, rolling about the head of some other cunt a million miles away, looking at something else altogether. So the plot, such as it is, well, it's a sort of loose remake of Splash, I suppose. Except in this version, the Tom Hanks character is an artist who specialises in particularly grotesque paintings. He spends his days wandering around the sewers looking for inspiration. The odd rat full of shite, or a dead Wayne or two, if he can find it. Eventually, he chances upon a mermaid who's living in the sewer. She's not very well, as you can imagine, but he wants to paint her portrait, so he takes her back to his flat and flings her in the bath, as any of us would do. Her health deteriorates quite rapidly, it's fair to say. Before long, she's absolutely covered in boils and pustules and tumours, and they're all exploding all over the bloody place every time she so much as bats an eyelid. Rather than let all that gunk go to waste, our man quickly sets about collecting it in jars so that he can use it to finish the painting. It carries on like that for a while. It doesn't end very well. Now, although most of the other entries in the Guinea Pig series, they don't have a lot to say, really, about much of anything. Mermaid in a Manhole never shuts its bloody face. It's got a load of really, really interesting stuff to say about, well, primarily the relationship between the artist, or the artwork even, and the muse. You know, this kind of draining of one in service of the other. It's about, well, very literal in this case, kind of obliteration of the subject in the creation of the image, you know. it raises a lot of really interesting questions, mostly unresolved, surrounding the ethics of that kind of appropriation of the suffering and the misery of others in what amounts to an act of self-affirmation, essentially. But who has time to worry about that when you're busy having the shits that 77 sailors put up you? Certainly, Mermaid in a Manhole, like most of the guinea pig films, is never content unless it's wallowing about in pools of the pitchiest putrescence. Here, that horrific and disturbing imagery is coupled with a really unsettling sound design and a general air of just absolute hopelessness. The effect of all of that, well, it'll be a long time before I bring another diseased mermaid back to the flat. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Get to fuck.
The second picture then on the list is Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
So Let's Scare Jessica to Death is a very strange and beguiling and disconcerting picture from 1971, directed by John Hancock. It's about a bunch of stuff. Ostensibly, it's the story of a woman, Jessica. She's just got out of a mental hospital, and she's about to move into a big old farmhouse in Connecticut with her husband and this other cunt. Upon arrival, they discover a squatter, this woman, Emily. She's terribly nice about it. She's going to get her stuff and leave. They're like, no, don't be daft. Sure, stay where you're at. We don't know you from a knife in the back of the skull, but you may as well move in with us. So she does. They're a bunch of hippies, basically. They're musicians and artists. They're a bit burnt out over the head of them bloody 60s. So they're pretty much pulling a Dylan. They're fucking away out the road to fuck, so they can sit around in the country, strumming turnips and smoking nettles, picking the leaving of Liverpool out on each other's armpit hairs.
Damn hippies. Creeps.
So it's all very tranquil and idyllic and folksy and serene. Or is it? No. Very quickly, we learn that Jessica hasn't quite recovered yet. She still hears voices sometimes. She's prone to hallucinations. Or are they hallucinations? As for this one, fuck knows what she's up to. Whatever it is, it's got everyone thinking about riding her, and it's freaking folk out to no end. The film actually has a lot in common with Mermaid in a Manhole, as it happens. I mean, they're both films about guilt and grief and madness. They're both about mentally unstable, artistic sorts encountering fucked up water women, and they both play out in these strange liminal spaces where the ratio of stuff that's actually happening to stuff that's just a load of fevered psychosexual brain fart is never really defined. Unlike Mermaid in a Manhole, it's all very subtle. It's all about suggestion. It's about half-formed things skittering about on the fringes of perception. In fact, I mean, if you're 14 years old and you've been up all night shitting tits on the GTAs, you might think it's all a bit tame, a bit boring even. Saying that, my cousin Peter saw it. He's only 14. He thought it was amazing, but then he's a fucking wanker. Another film that Let's Scare Jessica to Death shares a lot of spit and mind wax with is Herc Harvey's Carnival of Souls from 1962. Another chunk of weird, on-Eric Americana about a woman wandering around an increasingly hostile, sort of rustic, small-town environment that may or may not extend any further than the backs of her own eyeballs. Like that film, Let's Scare Jessica to Death makes really effective use of interior monologue and post-sync dialogue, a lot of which maybe was born of necessity, but it's absolutely crucial in the establishment of the really uncanny, almost ethereal vibe that hangs over the whole picture. As brilliant as the film is, though, and it is brilliant, for Christ's sake, it's unsettling and upsetting and beautifully crafted. It does, much like The Haunting, actually, approach the sexuality of its female protagonist in a way that comes dangerously close sometimes to equating same-sex desire with mental illness. The presence of Emily in the narrative, as some reviewers have noted, stirs up a fair bit of confusion in our Jessica with regards the old sexual orientation. Mind you, if you're in bed at night and your husband's bucking away at you and all you can think about is a beautiful woman stabbing you, probably not much to be confused about. But you know, just because Jessica is very uncomfortable with her sexuality, clearly, doesn't mean the film itself is. In any case, I mean, if you're looking for something that's really odd and really haunting and scary as fuck most of the time, Let's Scare Jessica to Death is really worth seeking out. So next, I've gone for another Japanese picture. This one, for my money, by far the scariest and the best of the many thousands of identikit, increasingly boring, jerky-elbowed ghost woman J-horror pictures that fucking flooded the place in the wake of Ring.
Here, boy, you're for a wild scar. I'm a fuck.
It is, of course, the film that could only be described as Takeshi Shimizu's still bloody terrifying Ju-on the Curse out of the year 2000. So the plot, as you probably know, concerns a wild bit of haunting that's been going on in this house here over the head of some terrible shenanigans that went down at some time or other. So terrible, in fact, were those shenanigans, that even people who are only tangentially connected to the place can expect to be tormented inside out by either Croaky O'Paleface here, or this terrifying wee bastard. Now, chances are you're familiar with the whole Ju-on mythos. There've been various iterations. Takashi Shimizu's own bigger budget remake, Ju-on the Grudge, has a lot of fans, as does the American remake starring Ted Raimi as this fellow. There's also been various sequels and spin-offs running the gamut from the merely unwatchable to the truly fucking satanic. Shite, bit shite, not that bad, fucking horrible. As far as I'm concerned, none of them have ever come anywhere near to nailing that sort of sense of pure dread that permeates every bloody frame of the original. There are many things to love about The Curse. There are many things I love about it. Primarily, I think, I love that there's no farting about with it. I mean, so many pictures about the ghosts and the ghoulies, they fall to fuck in the last 40 minutes because they think they have to throw a load of bloody plot at you all of a sudden. It's like late 80s, early 90s Hollywood comedy capers. Didn't matter what the plot was. A billy goat wins a bicycle in a raffle, or a man falls out of a hot air balloon. Didn't matter. 40 minutes in, all the jokes have to go back in the box to make room for a lot of shooting and shouting and learning some shite. So many horror films suffer from the same thing. Not The Curse. It has no truck with any of that nonsense whatsoever. And that works for me. I mean, for me, a scary story is, I don't know, I open a packet of crisps and there's a bloody face in there looking up out at me. That's it. I'm done. Leave it at that. I don't need to know that the face belonged to some bloody software developer. He's got a daughter in some brownstone apartment somewhere. They lost touch. He never had a chance to say goodbye. I don't give a shit. Just leave me with the face in the crisp bag. And that's what The Curse does. And that's not to say the thing doesn't have any depth. I think it does. I think it's got a lot of really interesting stuff going on. It's just that it's not concerned with racing towards the usual pat melodramatic resolution. And that's reflected in the structure itself. I mean, it's a non-linear narrative. It's not moving horizontally towards some get-out. It's moving vertically, right? It's piling the various time spaces that the characters inhabit one atop the other, and they're clattering over other all the while, punctured from the ground up by this just senseless malevolence that bleeds out over everything. So there you go. That's 3 of the 5 scariest films of all ever, according to me, listed for you there now. Now there's 2 films left, and this thing's already been going on for bloody months. So I'm gonna cut it here, but I'll put the second part up in the next few days or a week's time or thereabouts. In the meantime, you can subscribe to the channel, and there's a page on Facebook you can like, all that jazz if you want to. Yeah.